So a lot of students are having problems with calculating the net income, working backwards to calculate net income when they have other information. So we know from the work you did in previous chapters that we might have opening shareholders equity. And let's say the opening shareholders equity is 183,400. And then down here we have our closing shareholders equity. And let's say that's $248,600. So they ask you to calculate what happened to shareholders equity between the opening and the closing date, right? So we just do the calculation. We take the closing shareholders equity, we subtract the opening shareholders equity. If it's positive, we know that this is an increase. So that seems to be straightforward and students understand that. And then it'll give you some information. It'll say something like the company had the following changes in its shareholders equity during the year. And then they'll give you some information. They'll say dividends declared were, let's say, $56,000. And then they'll say there was a issue of common shares of $10,000. And then they might say that there was other shareholders equity changes or items, let's say items decreased by, let's say, $12,000. So they give you that information. What we need to understand is when we look at the opening shareholders equity being 183,400, there's only a few things that can change shareholders equity, and we know what they are. There's net income, which is going to be a positive. There is dividends, which is going to be a negative. There can be an issue of shares, which is going to result in a positive change. And there can be a repurchase of shares, which is going to be a negative change. And then let's just do other shareholder equity changes. And these can either be positive or they can be negative. And then when we take that into account, we can do closing shareholders equity. And that closing shareholders equity is going to be, of course, that 183,400, add this, subtract this, add this, subtract this, and then whatever they tell us, right? And that's going to equal closing shareholders equity. So I can take this away and I can take this away and say, okay, if I have these things, that's going to be an outcome of positive $65,200. If I give you this other information and I leave one of them blank, just one of them blank, you should be able to calculate the blank thing. So when I look at this, if I look for the information we had negative 56,000, we had common shares issued for 10,000, and we had other changes, which was negative 12,000. So now solve for X. This is blank because they didn't give us any information. So we put 0 here. Now solve for X, which is net income. So this is a math sentence, right? I can convert this math sentence to being 56,000 and then add in the 10,000, deduct the 12,000, and this is equal to 65,200. The only thing I'm missing here is my question mark. So I'm going to put question mark plus. And all I have to do is solve for the question mark. This is a very basic, solve an unknown number. And so that's what it's asking you to do. And the reason it's asking you backwards is to make sure that you understand that these are the only things that change shareholders' equity. And if I have the outcome of all of these things and I give you all of this, you should be able to calculate net income. Oh, I said net earnings, net income, net earnings, doesn't make any difference, net income. There we go. All right, so that's what the question is asking you to do. In this case, I know that the answer for this, by the way, would be, here we go. I'm going to add in, deduct, add in. Net income is $123,200. And I can quickly check that by placing it in here. There we go. And it is correct. All right. Hopefully that helped.